Welcome back. It's time for another video build. I thought we'd do a Stratocaster style guitar this time. It'll be a pretty stock standard Strat. It'll be a hardtail, 3 single coils, but I'll show you some of the processes that I do anyway when I'm making that type of guitar, and you guys can check it out. We're going to use a flame maple blank for the neck. We're going to have a Rosewood Fretboard, and we're going to use the Spoke Style Trussrod, which I like. So that's probably not very traditional, but you know, these truss rods are great. They're easy to put in, easy to adjust, and they look really cool as well. So we're actually going to do something a little different. Well, the neck's going to be 21 frets, and we're going to route the truss rod in and actually hide the spoke nut inside the heel of the neck, and we will route access to it just after the 21st fret. So the whole neck will still sit inside the neck pocket. We won't, as you'd normally do, you'd extend this out and you know, cut access into the neck pocket that way. We don't need to do that. We'll do it a little bit different this time. So we'll see how it goes. Alright, first thing we need to do is dimension the timber down. Now on a standard Fender Stratocaster or a Tele, your neck thickness is 1 inch, which is 25.4 millimeters. Now I like to have the blank at 18 mil, and I have the fretboard at 7.5 mil. It's just my personal preference. You can make this thicker and this thinner. As long as you get it adds up to 1 inch, you should be good. So this is oversized at the moment. It needs thicknessing down. This is at about 9 mil at the moment, so I need to, well, it's rough sawn. It needs to be tidied up, jointed. So we'll take care of that first. Jointed one side of the blank nice and flat. We've also jointed the edge as well. So we need to thickness it down now. Now it's about 22 mil at the moment. We want to take that down to 18 millimeters. That's our rough sawn fretboard, which is, you can see the bandsaw marks on it. So that's about 9 millimeters at the moment. That needs to be, we need to joint one edge straight, and we also need to flatten one face, and then I can put it through the thicknesser and take it down to 7.5 mil. So that 7.5 mil combined with the neck blank of 18 mil will give us 25.5 mil. Which is just a tad over 1 inch. So I've just allowed a little bit of room for some sanding. What I'm going to do is make just a little sled really for the fretboard to go through the thicknesser. If I was to put this through the thicknesser by itself, it's very thin. I'd end up with some planer snipe on the front and on the back of the board, and obviously I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is sit it on this piece of wood here, put a block of wood here and a block of wood there, and then put the whole thing through the thicknesser. Any snipe will be in the excess wood that I put at the front and the excess wood at the back. So we won't get any snipe on the fretboard. Before I can do that, I need to joint this flat and then put this through this thicknesser, and you know, get a clean top on this so we can attach the fretboard. Okay, well that's nice and square now. So we're going to put the fretboard on there. Going to put a little block at the front, a little block at the back, and that's all going to be held down with tape. And then we're going to put it through the thicknesser and take the fretboard down to 7mm. Yeah, we'll just check the thickness of both of these pieces combined. That's 25.55, which is pretty close. Gives us room for a bit of sanding, and we'll end up with a neck that's 1 inch thick. Alright, well the next step is to transfer a line down the neck blank that corresponds with the centre line on the neck here. Transfer that line onto the end of the neck blank. If you've got a template like mine and you've got the dots drilled out, you can actually use my line to line it up with the centre line. Makes it very easy. Okay, now we can start marking out where the truss rod's going to go. Now, I want the truss rod to just be inside of the line there. Just about there is perfect. So, put a mark on the other end here. That's where our truss rod channel finishes. Okay, we can measure now for the depth of the truss rod. Let's get that flush there. And we draw a line on the other side. There we go. Now this is the mark I put for the end of the truss rod. And this is the edge that I squared on the jointer, so this will register nice and square up against it. What I want to do is transfer that line right the way across. I also want to continue it onto the side, like so. Go. Alright, so what we've done is we use the mark we made for the end of the truss rod. We transferred it all the way around onto the back of the blank. We're going to use that line when we're routing at the router table to tell us when to stop, so we don't cut the channel too far. This is the router bit that we use for doing the channel, cutting the channel in the neck, and it's just slightly wider than the truss rod that we're using. We've got, this is the jointed edge, and that is going to run up against the fence on the router table, and we've got the bit in there, and it's going to cut a channel. Now there's a couple of things we need to do first. The main one is to get this centered on our line. So I've spun the bit, this is not plugged in by the way, I've spun the bit until the cutting edge is just right there, square. So we just line that up with the blade, so the cutting edge is right in the middle there. Lock the fence down. Now we've got to work out how to stop in the right spot so we don't cut right up into here. So I'll show you how we do that. So all we need to do is imagine the neck going through there. This outer edge is the end of the cut. So if we just run a square and we draw a line down here with a bit of pencil, we know that that's the end of our cut. Alright, the way that's going to work is we're running the neck blank all the way through, and as we get to the end we've got a visual indication. When these lines are lined together, we know we need to stop. Alright, we're ready to start routing. So I've got a visual indication there of how deep I need to go. So as I start creeping up on that, I'll put the truss rod in there and just keep taking just a tiny bit off each time until we get the truss rod fitting perfectly. Alright, so we need to wind this down. We don't want it to be taking too much off at one time. Yeah, that's about enough for the first cut. That's the first pass, and we stopped right where we wanted to stop. So we'll do another couple of passes and finish the channel off. Alright, so we're probably not quite there yet, but I'll just check it. Okay, it's just a little bit high, probably another pass or two. Okay, that's my fourth pass, and that's perfect. It's just below the blank, which is fine, so I'm happy with that. Alright, so what we need to do now is we've got a rounded portion here from the router bit. I just need to square the ends up with a chisel, because we've got the truss rod is just hanging out the edge of the neck at the moment, which we don't want. So once we square this end up, this rod will push forward a bit and it should just be inside there. Perfect. Okay, we're just inside the heel now, which is where we want to be. The next thing we need to do is make room for this barrel, which is wider than the rest of the truss rod. So I'll just mark where we want to finish routing. And what we're going to do is just use a wider router bit. Now, we don't touch anything on the router table, that's still set up on our center line here. If I just replace the original router bit with this one, it will cut a clean channel right the way through to here, and apart from this being, we still need to fix that up, but we know we've got enough width there for that to slot down. So what I'll do, transfer this line across there, just like I did at the front of the neck, and we'll be able to use that as a guide to how far to route. So I need to work out the depth that I need to route this wider channel, and it's going to be about there. Okay, so I'll transfer that line down there. Now we need to adjust this line, of course, because we've got a wider diameter bit. Okay, so this is what we end up with, just a wider channel just up to this line here, and that's going to allow this barrel section to seat down in there properly. Obviously, as soon as we remove a bit of wood on the side here for the spoke to sit down. When I install these hot rod truss rods from StewMac, they recommend you install them with the adjustable rod at the bottom, like so. Now, I never install them like that. I flip them over. And I've emailed StewMac, they said there's no difference. The only difference being is your adjustment is reversed when you're adjusting the neck. The reason I flip it over is when we've got the fretboard on, we've got quite a distance to actually get down in there to make the adjustment. Now, I'd much prefer to flip it over like so, still well below the fretboard, but you can see the adjustment, and you just put a little Allen key in there and just turn it. It's much easier to get at. So that's the way I install them all. Never had a problem, they all work perfectly fine. First thing I need to do though is just bandsaw this excess away here. So we're now ready to just remove a little bit of wood just on the side here, so the spoke and the whole truss rod will just seat down properly. So I'll just mark just the distance that I want to cut in that way, and I'll follow that through with a square. We also want to mark the depth as well for the cut, which is about there. And we'll just make a real quick and nasty template, and it's just going to be 3 pieces of MDF, just like that, and that will allow us to just route down in here and slip the truss rod in. So I've got some marks here. I've got a depth mark there, I've got a mark at the back there, so this will line up with our line there, and I'll bring these 2 side pieces in, and obviously we'll put some double-sided tape on that, and we'll be ready to route this little section out here. Line it up there. Just make sure it's even up the top here on the truss rod channel. that's the router bit I'm going to use, which is the same router bit I used to cut the channel for the truss rod. So the router bit's just going to follow the template we made, and we've got the depth mark there just to give us an indication of how far to go. Alright, so we've got the router bit in there. We just need to adjust the depth of cut. That should do it. Alright, well now we get to test fit the truss rod. There we go. Okay, well that's we're fitting in there quite nicely. Now, of course, this could have all just been chiselled out. I mean, if you're good with a chisel, it would have taken you 5 minutes to do that. But it took me, you know, an hour on the router and mucking around. But it's a nice, tidy fit. So I can give you a better idea of what we're doing here now. Assuming this is a fretboard, it's actually going to fit on like that. And we're going to cut a notch out of here so we can adjust the truss rod from the top of the neck while the neck's still on. So alright, the next thing to do now is to bandsaw the neck out, and then we can route it. So we've finished sanding the headstock. It's ready to be routed now. Now you can see I've sanded pretty much to the line everywhere. I mean, we're just taking off just a slither of maple. So anywhere where you've got end grain on maple, you want to be very careful routing. So you've got end grain at the end here and also at the heel. You want to sand that right the way back. You want to just be taking off less than a business card worth of maple, because a router will grab onto that maple otherwise, and it'll throw the neck across the room. So you really want to be careful. So I'm going to make a template now, a copy of this. This is my master, so I don't route with this. So I'll make a copy of that, and that copy I'll attach to this neck, and then I can route the neck. This is what I'm going to use for the template. Now, I would normally use MDF, but I don't have any left in the workshop at the moment, so I'll make a copy out of this, and it's just a matter of just drawing around with a pencil, and then we'll bandsaw it, and then we'll route it. Our template's cut out now, so it's just a matter of attaching it to the neck blank with some double-sided tape. Just align it on the lines that we drew earlier. You want to get that pretty much spot on, and tape it down, and then we can route it. There's very little material that's going to be removed along here and along there, along the back here, which is all the end grain, which is what we're after. So this is the router bit we're going to use to route the neck. It's an upcut spiral flush trim bit, so it's a little different to your normal straight trim bit that you'd normally use. It does a very good cut, very sharp, so we can do the cut in one pass. Well, this is all routed nicely. A couple of little marks on here, just a bit of router burn that'll have to be sanded out, but nothing to worry about. Now, next thing I'll do is attach this template back on, and I can then just mark. I'll just put a punch through here, and I'll just mark where the tuner holes are going to go. So I've just put a couple little bits of double-sided tape on there just to stop it moving while I'm punching the holes. Okay, well that's punched out. We've got some marks here, so we can drill those through later. I just wanted to get those marked now. We're pretty much finished with the neck. We can move on to the fretboard.